Question 6. The universe is a well-oiled and perfectly timed machine. Is it more plausible that it was intelligently designed, or that it came about through an accumulation of random acts over a long period of time which would eventually start this machine? Well, this question only makes sense if we accept the premise that the universe is a well-oiled and perfectly timed machine. The author, Douglas Adams, likened this claim of perfection to a puddle waking up one morning and thinking, "This is an interesting world I find myself in, an interesting hole I find myself in. Fits me rather neatly, doesn't it? In fact, it fits me staggeringly well. Must have been made to have me in it." Of course, the hole wasn't made to have the puddle in it, despite how well the hole fitted the puddle. Where the premise of a fine-tuned universe falls down is in the assumption that no other forms of life are possible, and that we are the purpose of the universe sort of designed with us in mind. This is referred to as the anthropic cosmological principle. Just because the universe appears to be fine-tuned from our viewpoint doesn't mean that it's been fine-tuned. Ask yourself, does the universe suit us, or do we suit the universe? Question 7. If we are products of random acts, and indeed all things that we observe came out randomly or accidentally, then even the things we are doing now came about by random occurrences. Why is it important that the random actions in your lives should have any effect on random actions in anyone else's life? If the solar system is brought about by an accidental collision, then the appearance of organic life in this planet was also an accident, and the full evolution of man is an accident also. If so, then our present thoughts are mere accidents, the accidental byproducts of the movement of atoms. Ultimately, this question is about the meaning of life. If there is no God, what's the point of anything? C.S. Lewis couldn't deal with the concept that there was no great plan, no great planner directing everything, so he clung to his faith as a drowning man might cling to a lifebelt. That's fine. Many theists argue for the existence of God for exactly the same reason, i.e. they can't handle the concept that God does not exist with the meaningless that would introduce to their life. Why then should we listen to materialists, evolutionists, etc., when we seek the origin of life? Well, nobody says we have to. Theists present their doctrines and beliefs, and we can go along with them if we wish. Of course, you will be expected to accept these doctrines and beliefs with the minimum of evidence and little dissent. The overriding watchword here is faith. The scientific community present their theories, which should at least be based on available evidence. Now, the thoughts that led to these theories may be merely the byproducts of the movement of atoms of firing synapses and chemical receptors, but you work with the tools you've got. The alternative is to give it all up as a bad joke and top yourself. Question 8. If there is no God, no salvation, no responsibility and no commitment to one another, then why do you feel the need to spread the news of atheism to a deceived or Christian world? What would you hope would come of it, and why would that even matter? You started this question with quite a large non sequitur. It's perfectly possible to have personal responsibility and commitment to one another without invoking God. Some would argue that people have a greater personal responsibility without God, as they don't have the crutch of an invisible entity that's going to absolve them of all their sins. Therefore, if an atheist does wrong, it's down to him and him alone. However, the reason there is a need to spread the news of atheism, as you put it, is to counter the massive intellectual drag imposed by organised religion. It's scary to imagine just how far man would have progressed without organised religion holding science back. scientists such as Galileo imprisoned for heresy, Darwin delaying publishing his theories for fear of the repercussions. We only need to look to the UK today, where the Catholic Church is trying to hold back medical research which could lead to cures to Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's. The Church is utilising the same arguments against stem cell research that were used against Fleming upon his discovery of penicillin. Of course, I hardly need to point out that similar research has already been effectively outlawed in the USA as a sop to other religious groups. Now, there is undeniable proof that these diseases have a real debilitating effect on people. There is absolutely no concrete proof that your God exists, or even if he does exist, that he would oppose this kind of research. Yet Christian groups think they can impose their ideals on the rest of society. Unfortunately, people have to take a stand to stop their archaic, medieval superstitions dictating how the rest of us can live our lives. There is hardly a technological advance in mankind's history that hasn't been opposed by organised religion. After all, ignorant peasants are hardly going to fathom out that the Bible is full of plagiarised, contradictory myths and fables if they don't have access to printed books, libraries, advanced medicine, computers, the internet, etc. Question 9. No one can study everything or have infinite knowledge. Does it take faith to be an atheist? No. Thanks to an increasingly secular world, we now have these amazing inventions called libraries. These libraries hold books that contain the constantly increasing sum of human knowledge, almost entirely free from the fear of these books being burned by religious zealots, as has happened in the past with any book that was classed as heresy or did not fit in with the Bible. It's true, though, that we'll never know everything. As a wise man once said, accepting that you will never know everything is the first step in the road to wisdom. This does not now mean, however, that it takes faith to be an atheist. No, it takes reason. Is it faith that allows me to dismiss the notion of fairies at the bottom of the garden, or reason? I can't disprove that there are fairies at the bottom of the garden, but without any evidence of their existence, it's extremely unlikely. And we're back at Occam's razor. Now, I could set up traps, detectors, motion sensors, cameras, etc. If these turned up blank, and I fully expect they would, could you seriously claim it's still an act of faith to deny the existence of fairies at the bottom of the garden? Now, I've heard the arguments from theists that God isn't on a par with mythical creatures such as fairies, unicorns, Thor, or the flying spaghetti monster, that somehow the fact that it's God we're talking about elevates that particular myth into some special area where it should be held to be credible. Unfortunately, that is just not true, despite how much you might want it to be. I might not be able to prove that your God is a figment of man's imagination, but without a single scrap of proof of his existence, he is, to all intents and practical purposes, exactly that, a figment of man's imagination.